In Annie's hallucinations, Bella had been suggesting to Annie that Alan was the killer, so she bandaged up and hoofed it to Bella's house. But then Alan wasn't there. There was a goofball impersonating Altman, and was so embarrassed she didn't know what to say.
Bumblebee breathing. I teach it in all my meditation classes. It helps reduce stress, but especially anxiety.
The woman is the president of the local foundation. The rich man and the man beside him are members. She seemed to know what Annie was up to. She then deliberately talked about Alan being in a drug rehabilitation center. This led Annie to believe that Alan had killed his sister in a drug attack. Conflict erupts instantly, and angry Annie thought she had found the truth. On the spot, she says she's going to the police. Jessie was already upset about the loss of her daughter. She saw that her son had been vilified too. In a fit of rage, she threw Annie out, but as she was about to close the door, Annie said the same thing Bella had said before she died. Even her tone of voice was identical.
I'm sorry, I needed that.
Annie found Alan and confronted him. He denied it. Alan said the month before Bella died, they did have a fight, but it was because of the flower they were smoking. All he remembered was that Bella had stabbed him first. The altercation soon attracted friends, and it was a scene Annie had seen before.
You were there.
I know what you're talking about. Did you see my sister?
After they pressed her, the man had to admit he liked Bella. At the time, he was going to confess his love. He witnessed Bella throw the radio into the bath. This caused her to be electrocuted and die instantly. He was scared, so he hid the truth from the police. Annie also saw what happened through a hallucination. So when she learned that Bella had committed suicide, she was relieved to find her best friend and recount the absurdity of what had happened to her. She thought that if she found out the truth, Bella would leave her. But then her best friend's mother went berserk. She grabbed Annie and slashed the bandage from her hand. It was then that Annie discovered to her horror, her skin had turned white under Bella's influence. Even a small amount of yellow hair appeared on her head. Annie was terrified. She rushed to cut off the yellow hair. Then she cut the albino wound with scissors. She recklessly ripped off the entire piece of flesh, despite the pain she was feeling. But it was her boyfriend's bar mitzvah. Annie had to put up with the pain and dress up for the occasion. As she was giving her speech, a strange thing happened again. The crowded room was instantly empty, and then Bella appeared. She was spitting blood. Rats kept coming out of her torn chest. In a panic, Annie ran out of the venue. She arrived in a strange blood-red desert. Then a cloud of smoke rose from the ground and slowly approached Annie. And inside she saw the masked men. Back in reality, Annie is surrounded by her boyfriend's family. They were furious with Annie for interrupting the bar mitzvah. This disgraced her boyfriend's entire family. In the face of the hostile stares, Annie doesn't have time to explain. The girl is bitten by a scorpion at her feet. Now everyone thinks she's evil. Now even her boyfriend is disgusted. He wouldn't stand up for her. Desperate, Annie sees the situation and leaves. Meanwhile, Jessie called her husband into the restaurant. She takes out her notebook. She says that the words Annie said when she left was actually a code word between herself and her daughter. So Jessie guesses that her daughter was probably trapped inside Annie. She's trying to call for help herself. It just so happened that the rich man had the same idea. So the two of them hit it off. And so they took a helpless Annie into their home. At night she dreamed that Alan was in the desert, and he had a human crystal on a boulder, and she had blonde hair and blue eyes, and her tan skin had turned white and smooth. The next day she woke up. Anne's arms had begun to turn slightly white. To drive Bella out of her body, she went to the desert of her dreams, only to find that Alan was here too. It turned out that he had had the same dream. He was here thinking about what his sister was trying to convey. The two of them mull it over. They decided that the memory of Alan being attacked by Bella after taking drugs was particularly important. In order to remember this memory, Alan puts on the clothes he was stabbed through. He asked Annie to mimic what had happened. When everything was ready, the room was instantly darkened. He went back to the day he had been stabbed. At that moment Bella was cooking, but as he approached, he saw there was a rat with a broken tail on the counter. Bella suddenly stabbed Alan. Then she hid the tail in a hidden compartment under the wine cooler. She screamed that her brother had attacked her. Annie saw the same thing. She opens the compartment. Annie found, in addition to a few rat tails, there was also this little pill inside, as there was only one drug dealer in the whole school. So the two soon found each other. They found out that it was a hallucinogen that stimulated the subconscious mind and awakened deep memories. And the reason Bella bought it from her, she seemed to be trying to find a missing memory. Hearing this, Annie decided to swallow the drug to find out why Bella had killed herself. At that moment, a sharp pain shot through her teeth. She looked in the mirror. Her teeth had somehow been smoothed out. but Annie had never ground her teeth before. After separating from Ellen, Annie went to the hairdresser's next. She had her curly hair done in the same style as Bella's. Her best friend saw this and asked about it. The next thing she knew, Annie was pushing her away. At this point Annie didn't know how to explain. She left her girlfriend behind and left. Annie found Alan. She found out that he had found a way out. Alan said that after having the same dream as Annie, 2 scratches appeared on his arms, combined with the hints left by Bella. The first thing that came to his mind was the logo of the local foundation, a sign that Annie had often seen. She just ignored it. The 2 men guessed that it was all about each other. If they could only enter the dream world where it happened, they could find out why Bella had killed herself. So the 2 sneak into the foundation building. They took advantage of the fact that no one was looking. Annie inhaled a hallucinogen and went to Bella's dream. She saw Bella tied to a rock. She immediately rushes to untie her, but then the fog slowly appeared. Before Annie could react, the mist went straight into Bella's body. When she opened her eyes again, a dozen masked men appeared in front of her. They came closer and closer, forcing the real Annie to almost jump. Fortunately, a teacher from the school appeared just in time. He pulled Annie back. However, he took advantage of Annie's foggy state of consciousness. The teacher then took her and quickly left the scene. Annie looked around. She noticed a black mask in the back seat. She instantly realized who she was, and the teacher was not shy about it. He said that Bella had died because of him. With that, he drove out into the countryside. He was about to make a move on Annie. The moment of truth. Bella suddenly took possession of Annie's body. She pushed the teacher off the cliff. The teacher is killed instantly. Jessie arrives late to witness her daughter's murder. She fakes the scene as an accident. When she got home, she summoned Bella out again.
I'm still down there. Sorry, I have to do this again.
But Bella said she had no choice. She then took out a kitchen knife and tried to kill herself again. She had no choice. Jessie had to force Bella to take control and put her in her room. When she woke up, Annie was not impressed. She was losing a lot of hair. This means she doesn't have much time left. To find out what the masked man had done to Bella, Jessie turns on the grow-up video. At the same time, she took out her favorite toy. Jessie is trying to get Bella to come out through constant stimulation. With a lot of hard work, Annie was on the verge of a breakdown. She begged Jessie to let her go home, but this was met with relentless refusal. At this point, Jessie just wanted to get her daughter out of the way as soon as possible. She didn't care about Annie's feelings, and that's when Annie's skin was turning white, and her brown pupils turned blue. On the other hand, her best friend came looking for Annie, but she smelled a foul smell coming from the attic. She climbed up carefully, only to turn her head and see a cloaked woman rushed straight at her. Luckily, it's not a ghost. It was the scruffy woman from earlier. The woman was in a trance. She kept repeating that Annie was in danger and that she wanted them to go to Bella's house to rescue her immediately. Meanwhile, Bella tells Jessie the people who killed her were wearing masks on their faces. There was also a red mark on their chests. Based on her description, Jessie draws a triangular pattern. She discovers that it is the logo of the local foundation. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she called the husband of a foundation member home. Together they planned to find out who's behind it. But unbeknownst to them, the rich man was the one responsible for Bella's death. It turns out the foundation is a charity on the surface, but behind the scenes, it was a cult. With the help of her father, Bella volunteered to be a vessel. She let them put the demon inside her. At first her learning improved dramatically, but then Bella found herself becoming more and more violent. She was often unable to resist the urge to hurt her family and friends, so she had no choice. Bella had no choice but to take her own life. When she arrived at the hospital, she was still breathing, but her father didn't just ignore her. He even had her heart ripped out alive and placed inside Annie. Guilt-ridden, the rich man kept apologizing, but Jessie was devastated when she learned the truth. She stabbed him. When her husband wasn't breathing, she herself ran out of the house in a nervous breakdown, leaving a desperate Annie trapped inside. Then her best friend and boyfriend arrived. Annie's entire body had turned into Bella. Following the woman's instructions, they took Annie to a secret room. They then activated the device to send Annie into her subconscious to kill Bella. This was the only way to get her out of her body. Everything was going very well. Annie smothers her with a pillow, but then the camera pans around. The director of the foundation looks at the monitor and she smiles. Clearly this was the end result she wanted. 1 month later, just when Annie was getting into the swing of things and thought it was all over, the president and dozens of members of the congregation approached her. There were police officers, teachers, students. All of them looked at her with devotion. The headmistress was smug. She said that Bella had chosen to kill herself to seal the demon once and for all. She chose to commit suicide and leave her consciousness in her heart. And Annie's heart transplant. The rich man invited her to his home. Even the woman who helped her get her body back in the end. It was all a big show put on by the chairman himself, in order to get her to enter her subconscious and kill Bella to release the demon once and for all. Just then, the scars on Annie's chest were healing at a rate that was visible to the eye.